بارك الله فيك وأحسن الله إليك وجزاك الله خير على هذه الآيات. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who benefit from his speech. اللهم ربنا علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وهدى. And we also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect and elevate your friends. Inshallah ta'ala, to proceed. I'm not going to take that much time. As was said before, tonight it is the second night for our lectures, for our series of lectures. Tonight we have with us, we have Sheikh Samatar Mahdi. He's going to be talking about a topic that is very, very time relevant, very relevant to time, which is the opposite gender. So without any further ado, فليتفضل مشكورا مأجورا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وبه نستعين على أمور الدنيا والدين وصل اللهم وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما ينفعنا. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا التأويل. We'll begin by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thanking Him for the countless blessings that He bestows upon us constantly. وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. And if we try to count the bounties and blessings and the things Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us, then we wouldn't be able to do that. So our job is to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything that we have, for our health, for our family, for the wealth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us. Our job is to be thankful for that. So that first and foremost. And then secondly, we send our salutations on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Whoever does that, as we know from Hadith, then they get tenfold, right? They get tenfold. So one time you say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then you get tenfold of that. I always like beginning, especially in a new masjid. It's my first time in Taymiyyah. So I always begin by thanking the brothers at Al-Mina, Lihad al-Masjid, the brothers that are responsible for this masjid. Thanking Sheekh Hassan for bringing me here. So all thanks inshallah to you, and also the brothers and sisters that came to take valuable time out of your day, except for the little kids. Obviously they're being forced to be here, but everyone else that actually took valuable time out of their day to come listen, inshallah, something that hopefully benefits us all. And then jazakumullah khairan for your time as well. A Sahabi, let me bring this back. Think about this. Someone comes and that person, I'm gonna have to be careful, there's kids here. Someone comes and they want to do something with your sister, right? They're a boy, right? And they want to do things that are haram with your sister. What would we say? How would we feel? I'm talking to the men here first. How would we feel? Uncomfortable. Okay, we'll take it another level. Someone wants to do something with your aunt. Right? They want to do something with your aunt. Again, you feel uncomfortable. Take another level. Someone wants to do something with your mother. You feel, what's wrong? There has to be something wrong with this person. Right? So Sahabi came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked him, he wanted zina to be okay for him, to be permitted, to be allowed. And the Prophet ﷺ responded. He could have told him, that it's haram. I'm just kept that at that. And that would have been suffice. Right? But he wanted to present the message in a different way for the Sahabi to really understand the core issue with doing zina and being alone with the opposite gender and doing things that are not permissible. So he said, do you want someone to do that with your mother? Would you want someone to be with your mother and do things that are not halal? Would you want that for yourself? He said, absolutely no. Would you want someone to do that with your sister? Absolutely not. No one would want that. So now the Sahabi, he understood. He understood that sin is an issue and a problem, right? And that has effects beyond just that desire that we might have. Again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us with that desire. زُيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ حُبُّ الشَّهَوَاتِ مِنَ النِّسَاءِ وَالْبَنِينَ. That Allah beautified these type of emotions within us. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us like that. Allah creates us with certain desires and certain feelings, but it's a test to see how you're going to navigate it, how you're going to move with that desire that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you with. Right? He gives you an outlet that's halal to get married, and, right? To speak to the person in an honorable fashion, to speak to their father, right? And go the right way. And that's your choice. But you also have the choice to go the non-honorable route. Right? Talk to her behind her back, right? Shukansi. Sah. We've all been there, right? We've all been there. Do a little bit shukansi, text talk, pillow talk as we call it, right? And then sometimes you get married and sometimes you don't, right? And we're going to get into that a little later on. But the concept is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us that choice to do what's right and to do what's wrong. And to navigate whether we want to do that which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us to do. The reason why I brought that first hadith, I wanted to shock you guys a little bit. So inshallah, the rest of the talk won't be as shocking. So we recognize that our deen made zina haram. And it didn't just make zina haram. However, it made everything that leads up to zina haram as well. Right? What's my proof for that? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Right? Allah doesn't say, وَلَا تَزْنُوا. Right? Don't do zina. Well, Allah said, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't get close to zina. Meaning, don't do anything that will lead you to that final act. Right? And we're going to talk about zina. It can have different definitions. But the main zina that we know, again, there's kids here. Be careful. All right? PG-13. So, Allah tells us, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا. Don't get close to zina. That means everything that we all know leads up to zina. From amongst them, talking, getting extremely close, and you guys can do tafsir for yourselves. So everything that leads up to zina, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it haram. And when we think about it, we think about the ayat Allah mentioned about zina and how we know how severe the punishment of the zani is. Let's come to one of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ, at times he would have a dream. And the dreams of the Prophet ﷺ are revelation, they're wahi. Right? Me and you, we can have dreams that have no relevance, right? We're at the beach, we're just chilling, we're vibing. We can have dreams like that. But the dreams of the Prophet ﷺ, however, they're wahi, they're revelation from Allah trying to give him a message. So he came and he asked the Sahaba whether they seen any dream that day. So he do sometimes is ask them that question and see if they had a dream, and he would do tafsir of their dream, right? Tell them what that dream meant. Sahaba that day, they didn't have any dreams. He tells them, I had a dream. He tells them a lengthy hadith, very long hadith. And one of the points of this hadith, that he's seen those that were making zina. Those that would do the act of zina, and they were being punished in hellfire. Right? Specifically, the Prophet ﷺ mentions that they were in something called a tanur. They were in kind of like a clay oven. Right? And the fire, every time it would get hot from the bottom, they would get to the top. And these people are trying to get out. But the tanur has a small opening. They can't get out. And then when the flames would kind of subside, then they would go a little lower. And that punishment will be constant for them. Constant. So severe punishment. Severe punishment. And some scholars mention that punishment is for them in the grave. Forget the akhirah. They're going to be punished like that in the grave until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrects them. So clearly, we see we're not supposed to get near zina. And we see some of the punishments that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for those that commit zina. We recognize that when something has a massive punishment, something to do with the hellfire or things of that sort, then that is something that is a major sin. So we recognize it's a major sin. And we also have on top of that, the Prophet ﷺ specifying to us, out of all the sins that we could do, 7. Right? اجتنبوا السبع الموبقات. Right? Stay away from the 7. And the Prophet ﷺ describes it as mubiqat, destructive sins. Stay away from them. And one of them, az-zina. Right? So we recognize how dangerous it can be. Right? We recognize how dangerous it can be. Let me go back to the first hadith. We talked about the dangers in the akhirah. Really trying to explain to him how destructive this sin can be in a social aspect. Right? And we recognize that in the countries that we live today, where zina is okay and it's open, you can do it whenever you want. Right? People don't want to get married. Right? However, it causes issues. It causes violence after that. Someone does something with a guy's sister, and he comes up and he kills him or something like that. Or someone, he has someone that he's speaking to, and someone does something with them, and then he comes and he has to kill that man or something like that. So we see how destructive it can be in a society when we recognize that. And take it a step further, the destructiveness of the family. So this woman has a husband, she has children, right? And now she's doing things with another man, and vice versa. How is the connection and the family going to be after that? Right? Is it going to be, as they say, roses at home? I'm going behind this person's back, or the person is going behind this person's back, and they're doing things, and then they come home, and they have to pretend that nothing happened. And everyone knows it's wrong. Even those that don't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they know it's wrong. But they have to come home and pretend like it's okay. Pretend like it's okay. So we recognize as well the destructiveness of the sin to the social construct, and how these societies, when they didn't want to stop doing these type of acts, the road that they went through, right? And the destructiveness that we see, that none of them even want to get married anymore, right? And the level of trust between males and females, they don't trust each other. Oh, what do girls say now? Men are nothing, right? What do they call? All men are trash, right? Because there's no trust anymore. They don't see any valuable men that are not going to trick them and play around with them, right? And vice versa. Men are thinking, oh, this girl, she went through, when she was talking to this guy and this guy, bro, she's a problem. God knows what she did. And that's true. As a guy, you're probably not going to try to marry a woman that talked to 5, 6 guys. God knows what she did. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what she did. So you're going to stay away from her. So you see how destructive it is now. People are not getting married. They're finding ways to do things outside. And then there's no children. Or there's no next generation. Problematic. So we see again the destructiveness of that scenario. We talked about things that lead up to zina. And I want to talk about one specific thing now, and then we're going to get to the other later. So there's 2 things I really want to talk about. I want to talk about talking to the opposite gender and how we're supposed to interact. And then I also want to talk about looking. Right? I think those 2 are one of the major problems today. Let's start with talking. We recognize that we live in a society that we're going to be around people of the opposite gender. You're going to be with them in school, you're going to be with them in work, right? You're going to have to be able to speak to other people. Right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressing the wives of the Prophet. Imagine, top tier, right? Ummahat al-Mu'mineen. Right? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was addressing the wives of the Prophet, that He told them, فَلَا تَخْضَعْنَ بِالْقَوْلِ فَيَطْمَعَ الَّذِي فِي قَلْبِهِ مَرَضٌ وَقُلْنَ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. فَلَا تَخْضَعْنَ بِالْقَوْلِ. Don't, make your speech something that's, kind and too nice, where someone that has a sick heart is now going to, want to do things with you. فَيَطْمَعَ الَّذِي فِي قَلْبِهِ مَرَضٌ وَقُلْنَ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. Right? Say that which is right and righteous. Imagine, the concept here is, we're talking about the wives of the believers. Ya nisa al-Nabi, lastunna ka ahadun min al-nisa. You're not like everyone else. Oh, wives of the Prophet, you're not like all the other women in the world. You guys are special. And then he tells them, فَلَا تَخْضَعْنَ بِالْقَوْلِ. Right? Don't make your talk something that's that can cause a man to be affected by it. Right? So it's important that the sister recognizes that. Us men, we're weak. So the minute you kind of start talking to us in a kind way, right? We're flying. We're flying. We're on the highway. What's the major highway here? 270? Yeah, we're on the 270. We're going 100. You guys are miles, so I think you guys are a little slower than us. But he's already in game mode, right? He's going to bring out all his game, as we call it. He's going to have all the sauce. He's going to use all the right words, right? Because you kind of let him in. You talk to him kind of in a nice way. He didn't really see a guard, so he's gonna try to go as far as possible. So you have to recognize that. I want to say it starts with you, but to protect yourself from the desires of men, right? And your own desires. It doesn't mean that the woman doesn't have desires herself. Of course she does, right? So, but protect yourself from the severe desire or the severe desire of men. And in reality is, as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned to us, that there is no fitna more severe and difficult. أشد على الرجال من النساء. There's nothing more difficult of a fitna than women for the man. And that's not something that we can deny. I don't know if you guys seen the video on YouTube. You guys know Sheekh So he's giving a lecture, something similar to this. SubhanAllah. Sheikh is one of I used to look up to him. Now I'm kind of doing the same thing he does. So he was giving a lecture. He was talking about women, and he said, on every person's mind, on every man's mind, is woman, right? And there was a young kid, and he's like, no. And it was kind of funny. I found it funny. But you have to understand the construct of a man, right? The man wants to get you. You're the prize. You're the pearl, right? So he wants to get to you. And if you let him in, right? If you give him the hint that it's okay to talk to you and it's okay to speak to you, then he's going to take it further. And also your desires and shaitan definitely are going to play a role to get to places that you never wanted to be at. Right? You never want to be at. So again, this is a direct address to the sisters. Protect yourself by closing that entire chapter. You want to talk to me? Right? Talk to my father. Ta'al. Come. You are serious? Talk to my dad. Right? What is he going to say to your dad? Of course, he's going to come proper. Right? He's not going to come and say, you know what, I want to, talk to your daughter like that. No, he's going to have to come proper. And if he's not interested, then he's just going to say, you know what, I can't play with this one. I'm going to find another one. So you have to be smart enough to recognize what men want from you. Right? You're the prize. And they're going to try every means to try to get to you and, trick you and whatever it may be. Right? And that comes to an important point. I know I'm going all over the place, but that comes to an important point. And this question comes up a lot. I know there's a lot of young brothers here, but I kind of prepared for a little older audience, guys that were trying to get married. But inshallah, hopes to serve as a reminder that later on, maybe you can remember when you get older, inshallah, and you actually want to get married. The talking phase, right? When brothers and sisters are trying to get to know each other and talk, right? There's a couple of things that we need to remember. Again, we talked about the talking for the sister, and not to talk too kind in that sense. Also, the fact that we recognize that in a case of khalwa, when people are alone, as the Prophet ﷺ told us, that a man and a woman are not together by themselves, except that shaitan is a third party. Right? Shaitan has uninvited, has joined, your get together. He's uninvited. You didn't tell him to go, shaitan, forward. He just joined. The Prophet ﷺ tells us that he uninvitedly joins this gathering of yours. And shaitan's job is not to be nice to you, right? Not to tell you, oh, you're my guy, man. My guy. No, he wants to, of course, tell you he wants you to do something that's displeasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna shaytana lakum aduun fattakhidhuhu aduwa. Clear enemy. Allah's telling you, this shaitan, he's an enemy for you. So take him as the enemy. He doesn't want good for you. لَأُغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. I'm going to make them all go astray. إِلَّا عِبَادَكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصِينَ, right? Except those servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are sincere. Or another mukhlisin, right? Those who are chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So get careful. You got to be careful. That shaitan, if he's in the mix, then it's trouble. It's not going to end well. So when you're with a brother, right, and you guys want to talk, there's rules and regulations for my deen. And we have to follow those rules and regulations. And they're placed for your own benefit. For the benefit of the brother, that you don't play around with her. Right? That you don't play no games. That you go straight to the father. And if you're serious, then you can have a serious conversation. And inshallah, if the father's okay with you, and he should generally accept you, if you're a good guy, right? Then you're going to get married to her. Right? And for the sister, that this serves as a protection for you. If the man has to go to your father or your brother or your uncle, then he's going to come straight, as we said before. He's going to come straight. He's not going to come playing no games. So he serves as a protection. And that's a reminder, inshallah, to our fathers to be open. Be open with our children. Open with our daughters specifically. Allow them to talk to you. Let them tell you their secrets. Right? If they're hiding stuff like this from you, then all hell is going to break loose. So ask them, speak to your kids. Try to, find out what's going on in their lives. And you shouldn't do it at a place, where you're intruding, obviously, their privacy, right? Because then they're never going to trust you. But come from a place that you actually care. Abu, if a good guy comes to you, don't worry. I'm going to help you. I'm going to assist you. If you need money, I'm going to help you guys. Then she's going to trust you. She's going to come to you and say, Abu, Habil came to me and he wants to talk to me. What do you think? Now you guys are talking conversation. Habil, his hairline is bad. I'm just playing. But he should have said something like that. But, he's going to tell you from his manly experience. This guy, Abu, I don't think he's a good fit for you because X, Y, and Z. Right? He's going to do his research though. He's going to talk to him. He's going to sit down with him. He's going to find out who knows him. That's the job of the father. And and I always do this. I like to be 100% honest. Fathers have not stepped up to their job, especially in the countries that we live in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you a mas'uliyah that Allah is going to ask you for. كُلُّكُمْ رَاعٍ وَكُلُّكُمْ مَسْئُولٌ عَنْ رَعِيَّتِهِ. Everyone is responsible, right? And everyone's going to be asked about those people that they're responsible for. And as a father, as Prophet said, he's responsible for Ahl Bayti. Everyone that's in his home, he's responsible for them. So if you're not picking up that responsibility to find your daughter a good husband, right? Imagine Umar radiallahu anhu, he's going around, Sahabi, he's going around and he's asking, the Sahaba who wants to get married to his daughter. He's actively searching for a husband. And some of the funny stories, that we hear. The father, you tell him, your daughter, she's 30. I don't understand. What do you mean? You want her to go talk to somebody? Sorry, translation. I apologize. So the woman, she's 30 at this point. She's, gone to a relatively older age. Right? So you tell the father, uncle, why don't you try to help your daughter get married? Find her a suitable man. And he says, let her bring her own, let her bring somebody. That logic doesn't make any sense. That means you're okay with your daughter speaking to other men. You're okay with your daughter going on dates. You're okay with your daughter talking on the phone and having pillow talk. I'll tell you, personal. See, this one I can involve myself in the story here. I know I'm going a little off topic, but inshallah khair. When I was getting married, may Allah forgive him, my father-in-law passed away. literally. My uncle called. He calls me back 5 minutes later, and he says, "My father, I told you." He actually told me this initially. He told me, "I know him. He doesn't allow anybody to talk to his daughters. So I think you're kind of wasting your time here." So I said, I want to talk to her. Obviously, I have to make sure, disclaimer. I want to talk to her by myself. I would have put someone else in the group, maybe her brother, someone else. I was going to talk to her by herself. But at least let me, get to know her a little bit. صح. The halal way, inshallah, the halal way. So the uncle calls me back and he said, no one talks to my daughter. No one messages my daughter. No one calls my daughter. However, I thought you're a good man. If you want to come to the house and you can see my daughter. For me, devastating. I got turned down. I got shut down, right? As they say. But now that I have my own daughter, wallah, I respect him so much. And I recognize how he's looking after his daughter and how important his daughter is to him. Right? And that means I have to come the right way. And I came, Sheikh actually was with me. We went to the house together, I sat down with him, I talked to him. But in a respectful manner. That's showed I'm serious, hopefully. Inshallah. My wife might see this. But it shows some sort of seriousness from my side. If I'm going to go all the way to the house, speak to the father, sit down with him, then I have to come straight. I can't play no games. Right? I can't play no games. So again, coming back to the point that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislated these rules to protect us from literally ourselves. Right? So we don't go that route where we're doing things that are not pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We kind of spoke about talking, making sure that talking is limited. And again, I said a lot of times brothers and sisters say, okay, how can we talk to someone and get to know them for marriage if we can't really talk to them? So it's it's an oxymoron. You're saying get married, right? I hope that's an oxymoron, but you're saying talk to get married, however, don't really talk to get married. In the sense that and we kind of mentioned that, obviously, the father route. But actually, the other day, I was getting ready for another lecture, and I stumbled upon a study. I can't remember what university it was. But they were actually saying people that have actual girlfriends and boyfriends, and they stay with each other for a while. They call it common law marriages. Right? They live with each other for a good amount of time, and then they end up getting married. So they live with each other before they get married. There's actually a high level of divorce rate. And that would be contrary, or it would be against what we think. So the sister will come, the brother will come and say, I really need to get to know this person. I have to be around them. I have to spend time with them to know how they act. Right? That's the concept. That's the idea. But this study is showing you, and obviously our deen shows us first, but this study is showing us clearly that staying with them doesn't even help you. If anything, it affects your marriage even worse. Right? And it's more destructive to your marriage. Right? So again, some brothers and sisters might think, I need to be alone. I need to see this person's different side. If I'm with people, they won't open up to me. Right? But the reality is, the person is going to fake the funk until you're inside the home. Right? And that's why, sometimes our culture is good in some aspects, but some aspects, it needs a little straightening up. Right? I'm not the greatest in Somali, but mahira that. Gabadha been lagu soo xareeyaa miya? Been lagu soo xareeyaa, run baa lagu dhaqaa. That's incorrect. That's wrong. So the concept is that you lie to the person to get married to them. You show them your the good side, and then when they actually you get married, then you're your real self, right? But obviously you're supposed to show yourself as real the whole time. But the fact of how we are is that we're going to show the good side all the time, especially to this person. So it's important for the brothers and the sisters both that want to get married, that both parties are kawalling each other, as we say. Kawalling each other. They're lying. Everyone's lying to one another. They're trying to really, show the best side that they can. The minute you get married, that's when you see the true self. Her makeup, gone, right? She might be bald. You never know. I just play. But, the makeup is gone, right? That soft talk that she was doing the whole time that you really liked, she's probably not going to do that anymore, right? The fact that she used to wear perfume all the time, she's probably not going to do that at home, right? So all the nice stuff that you liked about them, that they used to do around you, for you, now that she got you, and now that he got you, they're not going to do that anymore. Right? So you have to be aware. You have to be aware that generally, that extended talk doesn't really bring any benefit. And in fact, as we know, it brings actual destruction, and it brings the person leading them to zina. So always go the right route. Always go through the guardian, especially for the sisters. Go through your father. Go through your brother, right? And to the parents, be transparent. Be open with your kids, right? Speak to them, talk to them, understand them, and especially in the countries that we live in, you have to take another step. You can't be like you were back home, right? Right now, everything's open, everything's allowed. No one's going to tell you anything. Back home, maybe the uncle, if he sees them, he's going to tell you, oh, listen, your daughter with this guy. No. Now we have, what do you call it? The no snitching rule. Can't be a snitch. So no one's going to tell you. You're not going to find out about this. So you have to be smart as parents. Coming to the gaze. Another point. How much time do I have? Okay. Coming to the gaze and looking, right? We recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran, وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ وَيَحْفَظْنَ فُرُوجَهُنَّ, right? وَلَا يُبْدِينَ زِينَتَهُنَّ إِلَّا مَا ظَهَرَ مِنْهَا. Speaking to the believing men, and also in this ayah, speaking to the believing women, right? Lower your gaze. وَقُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنَاتِ, and say to the believing women, يَغْضُضْنَ مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِنَّ, lower your gaze, right? We'll always tell the brothers, lower your gaze. Sisters, lower your gaze too. Right? Don't constantly stare. That's not something from our Sharia. So both parties, male and female, will lower our gaze. And as well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling the believing men to lower their gaze. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ. And say to the believing men to lower their gaze and protect their chastity. And for the females, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells them to lower their gaze and not beautify themselves. Right? Not beautify themselves. So don't entice the males to get to you. Don't entice them. Don't give them a reason for them to do things for you. And again, as we said, in the societies that we live in, and the number of sexual assaults and assaults on females, it's uncountable, right? It's literally a pandemic. They don't know how to deal with it, right? But they don't want to tell you to put on the correct clothes, right? And that's just they don't want to tell you the truth. They don't want to be honest with you, right? They don't want to be honest with you. So our deen is honest. Our deen is honest. Telling you, hey, listen, you want to be protected, right? Number one, obviously, stay around your maharim. Try to stay around with a male representative, male guardian. But also at the same time, protect yourself by wearing the right clothes. Right? Wear the right clothes. That don't don't reveal yourself in a way that might cause someone to have a type of way or type of feeling towards you. And for the brother, lower your gaze and protect your chastity. Don't get to a point where you lose your intellect, you lose your mind, and everything is about emotion, and you're thinking just to get the deed and thinking only with your desires. So obviously, looking is a huge component to leading someone to zina. And we know the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he mentions that every son of Adam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for them their nasib of doing a form of zina. Right? We're gonna do some form of zina. And then the Prophet ﷺ mentions that looking, your eyes, they do zina. Right? Your eyes do zina. Your lisan, your tongue, it does zina. How? By talking. That is a form of zina. Right? By looking, you get, as the Prophet ﷺ said, you get the first one, but not the second one. The first time you look away. Right? But the second one, that was on you. Right? That was on you. So the eyes, they do zina by looking. The lisan, it does zina by talking. Right? And the Prophet ﷺ says, وَالنَّفْسُ تَمَنَّى وَتَشْتَهِي. Right? The nafs, it wants, right? It wishes, right? وَتَشْتَهِي, and it desires. So the Prophet ﷺ is telling us that we have that within us. It's something that Allah created within us, right? And however, the farj, يُصَدِّقُ ذَلِكَ أَوْ يُكَذِّبُ. Right? So the private part either, fulfills that desire, or it denies it and it rejects it. So our goal is to recognize it's there, we recognize the desire is there. Our job is to make sure that we don't fall into it. We don't fall into it, and we overcome that desire for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inshallah, I want to conclude with the concept of modesty. I think it has direct correlation with what we're talking about. And we kind of touched upon it when we mentioned making sure we wear the right clothes, right? And modesty, as we know in our deen, al-haya shu'batun min al-iman, right? أعلاها قول لا إله إلا الله وأدناها إماطة الأذى عن الطريق والحياء شعبة من الإيمان. So Prophet ﷺ mentions the highest level of iman, saying La ilaha illallah. Saying La ilaha illallah. Belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tawheed. That's the highest level of iman. Right? And La ilaha illallah, maybe inshallah another time, bi'idhnillah, La ilaha illallah, tremendous statement. Tremendous statement, La ilaha illallah. Right? Profound meaning, La ilaha illallah. Right? We think of it to be, there's no God worthy of worship except Allah. It's more than that. Profound meaning, La ilaha illallah. وَأَدْنَاهَا إِمَاطَةُ الْأَذَى عَنِ الطَّرِيقِ, to remove something from the road. وَالْحَيَاءُ, and as Prophet has specified a branch. He mentioned the highest, the level, the lowest, and deliberately for that purpose, he mentioned haya to categorize it, right, and to really highlight modesty. وَالْحَيَاءُ شُعْبَةٌ مِنَ الْإِيمَانِ, and haya is a branch from the branches of faith. So to have haya is part of faith and part of iman. To dress correctly is part of iman. Right? To not talk to the opposite gender and be shy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a part of iman. And that's a form of getting rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we know, the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, Al-haya'u kulluhu khayr. Modesty only brings good. All of it is righteous. It's all good. For you to be shy, right? And to feel a type of way, to do something that will gain the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the reality of haya. We're not doing it because we're scared of people. That's something else. Right? But the true haya, right? And the Prophet ﷺ, speaking to the Sahaba, talking about true haya, right? Talking about true haya. أن يحفظ البطن وما وعى, right? وما حوى. وأن يحفظ الرأس وما وعى. I can't remember the difference. But على كل, to Prophet ﷺ talk about honest modesty, the reality of modesty, and says وأن يحفظ البطن وما وعى, to protect, right, and safeguard the stomach and everything that it entails. So haya is very broad in its meaning. That's the point I'm trying to get at. Haya is very broad in its meaning. But we recognize that haya is done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because it's a branch of faith. Right? So we're not shy. We're not shy of other people seeing us do a sin. But rather we're supposed to be shy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're not supposed to be shy of our partner catching us texting, our spouse. No. We're shy because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees us. We shouldn't be shy of getting caught in our bedroom, watching things that are not permissible to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But rather we're supposed to be shy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees us. يَعْلَمُ خَائِنَةَ الْعَيْنِ وَمَا تُخْفِي الصُّدُورُ. Forget about what you're doing and the physical action that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that which is within your heart. So you're not going to get away. So we're supposed to be shy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everywhere we are. And that's the message of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. اتَّقِ اللَّهَ حَيْثُمَا كُنْتَ. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everywhere you are. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what we're doing. So fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have haya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? Everywhere we are. And be modest and be shy in the way you carry yourself. Inshallah, those were the main points that I wanted to address. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت